Welcome to the Book Marketing Simplified podcast. I'm Jenn Hanson-dePaula.
And I'm Marcus-dePaula. We are recording this episode of the Book Marketing Simplified podcast a few months into the global pandemic of COVID-19. And Jen, you wanted to talk about how authors can market their book during the pandemic, what they should maybe be doing differently. What spurred this topic idea for you?
I've been hearing a lot of stories from authors of both frustration and heartbreak, meaning there have been authors who have been working on their book for years and they put their blood, sweat, and tears into it. They were so excited for it to launch. Then the pandemic hits and everything is just cut off. Everything stops. And maybe they had a publishing company that just said, no, we're not going to release it, or they were self-published and they just decided it wasn't the right time to release their book. So there were many uncontrollable situations in not releasing their book or something happening and just not knowing how to navigate their way through. And so I wanted to address this because there's always going to be circumstances that are out of our control.
Absolutely.
That might run into our release or might hold things up, or, just whatever it might be. And so I just wanted to address how authors can approach that and still work with it.
So life doesn't just stop.
No.
Like we just started back up with school with our son and we're adjusting to that whole new scenario, which I know for everybody in different parts of the world is different. But what can authors be doing to actually keep their professional livelihood rolling as authors?
Well, the first thing is more of a mental adjustment, and it's knowing that you are not the only one that's going through this. Mm-hmm. We feel very isolated because we are just in our own little world. We think, oh, I'm missing out on so much, or I'm missing my opportunity. When you need to remember that the world, not just you, is completely adjusting how they purchase products, not just books, but everyday necessities, and everyone is trying to figure it out. So knowing that you are not the only one that's going through this, or you're not the only one that's struggling to figure it out, is kind of a comfort in a way. And just knowing, okay, you are a part of something that's bigger than you, and it's not like you alone are missing out on an opportunity.
And while we're all holed up in our homes in quarantine, it does feel more lonely.
Very.
But the interesting thing that I've noticed is that it feels like people are actually using what you do with social media to connect on a broader level now. And so it's almost like there's a new opportunity here to find things that you can do.
Yeah, the biggest thing is to focus on what you can do, not on what you can't do. I think that was one of the biggest holdups, especially at the beginning of the pandemic, where book signings were canceled,
right,
where there were a lot of in-person things that were either put on hold or just canceled completely. And because, again, everyone is having to deal with this, everyone is trying to figure out, okay, how can we still make these events happen? So instead of focusing on what we can't do in person, let's see how we can make it work online. And so that brings up the point of how there are bookstores, there are libraries, there are other authors. Everyone is trying to figure out ways that they can do things online. So if you do have connections or events that are already scheduled for a book signing, and they're saying that can't happen, talk to them about what they're doing for online, like an online Q&A. Maybe there can be some sort of virtual book signing where you have your books and you're signing copies and you're answering readers' questions, and those books will be shipped off to those that, took part in this online event. It's discussing with these different entities on how you can work things out online. And there's so many ways that you can do that.
I see a lot of people postponing launch dates.
Yeah, I don't necessarily agree with that because people are reading now more than ever because they're stuck at home. And things have eased up a bit since we're now recording this, but people are still hungry for books.
Now more than ever.
Yes. And another point to remember is that your book has a very long shelf life. This pandemic is almost forcing us to reevaluate. Yes, a release date and your launch week is important. It's kind of like that running start to get things going. But your book doesn't live and die by the release week. People are going to continue to discover your book and discover you. And so when we put such a high premium on the release week and we think, oh, well, we can't do what we normally do, so let's just do away with it.
Right.
I think you're missing the point. It's about getting it out into the world and getting things going. I think this pandemic is forcing everyone to approach selling and marketing in a different way, meaning Amazon is the main place where people are buying books.
Which it already has been before the pandemic.
Exactly. And it's also making independent bookstores think, okay, how can I increase my online presence?
Right.
How can I, as an independent bookstore, offer something new or something unique or give to an author and a reader that Amazon does not offer?
Right, exactly.
And because I know that so many authors want to support their local bookstores, they want to support independent bookstores, or there are other specialty bookstores that they really want to support. So working with them as well as maybe you just put your book out, like on Kindle, but then you create special deals for physical books.
And special online events.
Yes, for your physical bookstores that you have in the area.
Right.
And it's something that we need to think about because everything isn't always going to stay the same way.
Right.
Everything is always going to be evolving. So knowing how to market your book during a pandemic isn't just about pandemic marketing.
Right.
It's about how are we going to grow and evolve because things are always evolving and changing.
Absolutely. This is a severe change that we're feeling right now. But the reality is that things are constantly changing.
Yes.
So,
and people get mad like when the layout of Facebook changes
Right.
or, a new social media outlet comes on that people are like, oh, do I have to sign up for that too?
Or MailChimp changes their pricing.
Yes. We're constantly dealing with change. And we have to realize that this is just going to be coming more and more. And I'm not being a Debbie Downer in any of that. I see this as opportunity.
Yes.
So instead of looking at the situation that we're in as a dire situation, look at it from a different perspective. Think, how can I work with what I have? And how can I work with the people that I know or that I am connected with online to work something out that is good and that benefits us and the readers.
And the readers, yeah, absolutely. So part of the big change that caused you to switch streams and start focusing more on social media back in the day when we started Mixtus Media was the fact that the internet is allowing authors to connect with their readers directly, whereas the old model before the internet, you had all these gatekeepers and the distributors and the retail and
magazines were going away.
Right.
Newspapers were going away. There were a couple of years there where it was like, what are we going to pitch to? How are we going to do anything? And it was this desperate feeling.
People were freaking out.
Very much so. And jobs were lost. Companies were completely destroyed.
Newspapers.
Yeah. And so it's kind of like that. Like we've always gone through change. We've always had things that have fallen apart and then rise back up. And so I specifically remember when we changed the company, I was sitting in the car and it was pouring down rain. And I thought, okay, I cannot focus on what isn't working because I had worked with so many other publicists who were just complaining and moaning about how everything was changing. And I thought, I can't do that. I need to focus on what is working and how can I join that conversation. So that's what completely turned everything around for us. And I think that experience helped us to kind of look at things in a different way. And I think that even though we're in the middle of this pandemic and we're still kind of trying to figure out our footing, it's such an opportunity. Instead of looking at all 27 things that you have to do, look at the 4 or 5 things that you can really focus on and do really well online.
Right.
Because even if it's not all 27 things, you are still going to sell books with those 5 tasks that you're going to do. And you're able to focus on them and do them really well rather than spreading yourself too thin.
Absolutely. So what are some of those opportunities now of being able to connect with readers directly thanks to the internet?
Well, obviously, social media, I mean, that's the biggest and the best way for you to do that. And now because people are in front of their computers more and, they're used to Zoom calls,
right,
more and more libraries and bookstores and community groups and book clubs, all of those different entities have things available online now. So you are able to knock out a bunch of different visits right from your home, sitting in front of a computer. And so you're also able to reach out to more people and to more bookstores and more libraries that you might not have been able to connect with before because you couldn't get up to them.
Right.
Or you couldn't travel.
It was cost prohibitive.
Exactly. So you are able to connect with more bookstores and libraries than you would if you were to visit them in person.
All right, so what is the make it happen moment for this quarantine special episode?
Well, what I would like you to do is to make a list of the in-person promotions that you would normally do for either a book launch or for regular marketing. Look at them and think about how you can make them work online. How you can maybe make a few adjustments, or even thinking about once the pandemic is over, maybe you could revisit those places, or when it's safe to travel, you could do those events in person. And it's not writing those in-person events off completely. It's reimagining it now. How can you do that online?
And it's also not trying to recreate that experience.
Yes. Yeah.
It's trying to find something that is possibly even a better version of that you can do online. It's playing to the strengths of the platform wherever you can.
Absolutely. Make a list and see how you can make some adjustments to make them work.
And like we say at the end of every episode, we love it when you let us know if this stuff is working for you or not. And if you have any questions, as always, reach out to us on the comments for this episode on our website. You can reach out to us on social media, all the usual places.
And if you have certain questions or certain roadblocks that you're facing during this pandemic with your book marketing or social media, let us know.
We'd love to address them on the podcast.
Yes, absolutely.
All right. Thanks as always for listening.
See you next time.